What are some things you do to make sure you're operating in excellence?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things we do. First of all, we try to train our people by giving them the expectation of what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the expectation. Here's what we want you to do.
Mm.
And then we make sure they have the resources or the materials or the support or whatever they need in order to accomplish what it is that we've established as excellent.
Yeah, yeah. I would only add to that, I think that's the pattern. The only other thing I would add to that is the accountability to evaluate.
Absolutely.
Are you meeting those measurements and
Yep.
then coming back? So we've given you the expectation, giving you the training and the tools. Now the checklist is we're going to circle back and see if you're meeting those expectations. And are you using those training, those tools and resources? Because if you're not, then we know it's not on the organization. We either got the wrong person or the wrong level of commitment. And sometimes you can't be excellent if you're not in the right seat, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we expect excellence out of somebody who are just not competent enough to give you that level. They can even be good. Because I remember you told me years ago that there were times when the ministry outgrew people.
Yep.
You said expect that.
Yep.
There can be times where your organization will outgrow the level of competence and skills that people have. And so I know that's not one of the questions, but talk about how you deal with that.
Yes.
Like when you hit that point and you know it.
Yeah, so one of the things I failed to do early in my pastorate is continually provide training to people to be able to keep up with the changes or the development or the growth of the ministry. So subsequently, some of the growth of the church ended up going past the capabilities of positions that some staff members had. And if I had to do it over again, I would have made sure, and I would say to every person, make sure that you continue to develop and train your staff so that they can try to keep up with the growth of the ministry.
And so the more difficult thing is, because this is I'm picking your brain because I want to know your thinking. When it happens that the person taps out or caps out, that there's no training that can get them up to the level of where the ministry is, what options exist at that point for the person who they just can't measure up to where you need it to be for this role? Like, I mean, they just don't have the capacity to do it. What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that we've tried to do, and this is you're asking a very important question. So all of our staff gets evaluated about their jobs and their skills, and they each have goals that we've established for them. If you don't meet those goals, if you don't reach those goals, then we either have to find a new position for you, or we need to release you to go find the position or the organization where your skills are a better fit.
That was a nice way of putting it. We had to replace you or remove you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's okay. I mean,
and removing you, moving you to a place where you could flourish.
Absolutely.
Because this is no longer that place.
Absolutely.
And I think with church people, that's very hard to understand because we think wherever we got baptized, we're supposed to get buried. Wherever we started, we're supposed to finish because of that loyalty. And so we don't feel the liberty to move on when we're in over our heads. So.
Yeah, we've had several people that we move them to a different part of the organization. And what most people have problems understanding is when we move you to a new place, it may mean that there's an adjustment to your compensation if you're a staff person. So sometimes people can't understand that this particular job pays at this level. But if you can't rise up to that level, we have to move you here. Then what also has to be moved is how you are compensated.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's a tough thing for people to understand. Yeah.
And people should understand that's how it works in the corporate world. But how much more should it work in the kingdom when we're compensating people with the generosity of donors who trust our stewardship? Like they're trusting that we're not paying a person who's now a coordinator a senior executive level pay to coordinate passing out programs at the funeral.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand
that's a fact.
That.
You know, and sometimes what I try to get people to understand, the options are you take a new role where your compensation is less, or the other option is we release you.
Yeah.
We remove you. And I think that sometimes people have to understand that getting my compensation adjusted is a better option than me having to go out here and find a new job.
Find a new job. I think sometimes it can seem insensitive as pastors because we're shepherds, but we're also leading an organization and a company. And it's not that we do this like knee-jerky. People are giving evaluations, feedback, opportunity,
feedback in writing. Feedback in writing.
Documentation. You taught me that.
That's right.
Performance improvement plans. And I know we went way further with that leadership question than people ask, but I just think it's so significant because sometimes the hardest part to deal with in leadership is the personnel part of it.
Absolutely.
And personnel is now always personal. It's not personal. It's personnel. And we have to do the professional things as leaders, even though we pastor the people and we married their children and we dedicated the children and we buried the mama. But this is still,
and I've been, I've been fortunate that I have made adjustments to a multitude of staff people and moved them to a lesser paying job. But they know I love them. They know that I love them as a person, and that we've so clearly defined what the expectations for the job have been, and if they just have not been able to reach that or meet that, then we have to make an adjustment. I don't suggest that you always move people to a new position. Sometimes it's better to let the person go and go find another job. So you have to handle that on a case-by-case basis.
Let me ask you a question again. I'm way all out of pocket with what we're supposed to be doing. Your church is $50-something million a year, 400 employees, hundreds of millions of dollars in property owned in cash, right? And I think as an African-American church, that is hugely significant. Where do you think you would be if you didn't do that with people who were underperforming, who should be removed or replaced or repositioned? What impact do you think it would have had if you didn't have the leadership courage to make those tough decisions? I know it's hard to go backwards. What impact do you think it would have had you not done that?
Yeah. So, John Maxwell talks about the lid. So every organization has a lid. And that lid determines the capacity of the level of where the church can go. So you have to raise your lid. And raising your lid means raising your staff's ability to handle, what you're doing. So if we had not made those adjustments, I've made multiple adjustments. The lid would have kept us limited to what we could do. And so sometimes you just have to make those tough choices. It doesn't mean I love the people any less.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean God loves them any less. It just means that they've reached a level that that they've maxed out at.